Hey there everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in again for another weekly update on news and information about DCS World. I'm your host, of course, Prickly Hedgehog, and as always, I do hope this video finds you well, wherever you're tuning in from today. A shorter newsletter from Eagle Dynamics this week, a little bit disappointing in that department, but there are still some pretty good nuggets we'll dig out here and analyze a little bit and discuss. So we'll begin with the stable version of the game, which has been updated to 2.7.7.15038. And this should allow you to enjoy all of the newest features of the game right now that were introduced several weeks ago in the open beta version. Now they're working steadily towards open beta 2.7.8 coming out soon. What that will entail, I'm not quite sure. How far out it is, I'm not quite sure. We have on average been getting at least one patch per month. Some of the patches have been quite large, so we could be in for another big patch at the end of the month or possibly even into December, because it may also include, of course, the Apache. That's probably speculative on my part, but we know that the Apache is coming, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. So as far as this update to stable version goes, remember this included quite a lot of updates to aircraft, including the Tomcat. Now, I've already covered some of this in this previous update, so I'm not going to go through it all again for obvious reasons, including brevity and entertainment value. But I will pull a link, if you like, into the description below for you to check that out for yourself if you were unaware of what these changes are. They are quite extensive. It is a big patch. It is a big change log. I'm mentioning the Tomcat here because it includes the Lantern and Jester AI capabilities, as well as they did some work on the flight model, and I found that particularly beneficial. I feel the aircraft is a little bit more realistic in handling. That's my amateurish analysis, but they did employ some subject matter experts to assist them in that area. The aircraft does, as I say, feel a lot more stable. They did some refining, of course, to the Petrovich AI for the Mi-24P, and of course the ground radar videos that you saw from WAGs are also part of that update for the F-16. So there's quite a lot of content. Again, I'll refer you to the changelog so that you can check that out just for brevity and all the rest of it. Now, moving on to the Apache progress and development, you've seen WAGs getting his swag on with the Apache, and now he's starting his tutorials. One of those was the IHADS integrated helmet and designation sighting systems, which of course is the monocular device that transmits flight data and night vision to the cockpit for the co-pilot and also the pilot. And the co-pilot position is also known as the CPG. There are 4 IHADS modes, and these are cruise, transition, hover, and bob up, each with associated flight, navigation, weapon, sensor, and targeting information that follows the crew member's sight. So a pretty useful device. As part of that, there's also a modernized pilot night vision system, which can also project to the monocle for thermal night vision along the pilot's line of sight. Again, a pretty sophisticated piece of equipment, providing a lot of useful data to the pilot. Now, if you want to see some analysis of what WAGs is producing, check out Casmo TV. Of course, he is a former Apache pilot, and he's been able to kind of analyze a little bit what's being represented here and how this will function in game, and what it looks like in comparison, if you like, to the real thing. And from what we're seeing, it's a fairly accurate representation of particularly with the FLIR apparently, but a pretty accurate representation of what pilots experience in the helicopter for real. Now, I know somebody pointed out to me that the helmets apparently did not match up with the era of the aircraft, and I wasn't able to verify that. Nobody else noticed that, so let me know if you're an expert in that area or can enlighten us in some way. I will add the caveat here that it actually came about as a podcast I watched, on the development of the South Atlantic map. And this was recorded, I think, earlier this year. I think it might have even been pre-2.7, if I remember rightly. And it included some of the developers from RASBAM with regards to that map, and also RASBAM himself, Ron Zambrano, came on. And he made a really interesting point about some things not being accurately represented on aircraft, or some features not being there, and so on and so forth. And you'll get people who, like myself, who will download manuals and learn a little bit about the aircraft and how to start them up properly and try to get to grips, as Juice calls it, sort of Bible study when you're looking through the manuals. And you will notice that sometimes things are missing, or sometimes things don't kind of marry up well with the Ego Dynamics version of the, supposedly same manual. And Zambrono basically said, look, I mean, there are features that we simply are not allowed to reproduce. So it doesn't matter if you have the manual, it doesn't matter if you have the NATOPS. There are things that the owners of the aircraft and the owners of certain systems and things will not let you reproduce for the game. And you can do all the whining you want, and you can complain all you want about the perhaps lack of realism sometimes. The problem is that it's not actually going to help. And the other problem is it's not the developer's fault. In other words, this is the best that they can recreate, even if they're allowed to recreate or represent something. And sometimes they're allowed to do that, but they're not allowed to do, recreate or represent or simulate in any way, shape, or form other features of an aircraft. And we're talking some pretty old aircraft sometimes, some of these older Gen 4 or even Gen 3 aircraft, and some of those systems may be missing because, as I mentioned last week with the A7E, the RWR that's in the A7E, even though it's an old aircraft, is still being used, or was still being used at some point in the FA-18 Hornet, for example. So there are pieces of equipment that have been around for decades, because some of these aircraft have also been flying for 30, 40, 50 years in some cases. So that is why, even though it might be an aircraft, the F-14D, comes up quite a lot. Why can't we fly that? Why isn't that available? Because it included basically a truck ton. I was going to say a naughty word then, but a truck ton of avionics and complex systems that are still being used today, or are still secret today, and are not available to Heatblur, for example, to use. And Heatblur flat out said that we don't have access to that data. We're not allowed to reproduce that at this time, and so we have no plans of ever producing the F-14D, unfortunately. So that's what you're looking at sometimes as a representation, or the thing that you thought was in the NATOPS manual or in the official manual is simply not there, and therefore, before you accuse ED or another developer of getting it wrong, it may be because they're not allowed to reproduce that, and that's why. So getting back to that helmet thing, if somebody else has any comments on it, or if there's another subject matter expert out there that has an opinion on whether or not those helmets are accurately modeled, I'd be interested to know. I just haven't had a chance to go back there myself. Again, just an interesting caveat, and right or wrong, it is what it is. Either way, I should add, I think we're still all looking forward to the Apache, and I think it's going to be a fantastic aircraft for the game. So that's the main focus here. Let's go back in time a little bit and focus on the Warbirds, which are also receiving a little bit of attention here with regards to the channel map and also a sale right now. Now, over the past few weeks, Ego Dynamics is telling us here that they've been resolving some of the outstanding bugs in the World War II modules, which is good news. And many of these fixes are now available in the stable version of the game, as mentioned from that last patch, etc., etc. So that's good news. Now, the work on this is ongoing, however, and for the foreseeable future too. So they hope to bring us more detailed feedback in the upcoming weeks. My mouth's getting a little dry. And they just want to thank us for our support and patience. And I think as part of that, they're giving us a little bit of a discount here because of the growing support for the Warbirds family of aircraft. And of course, the map. So if you are interested and you want to pick up the channel map with a Warbird, you will get a 30% discount on bundled modules. So well worth looking into if that is your bent, or if you just want to have a change of pace and pick up an older aircraft of your choosing that maybe you are endeared to but just haven't gotten around to it because of price, and now's a good time to pick something up. So there you go. Channel map's a nice map too, by the way, and the some of the World War II aircraft are pretty challenging to fly in their own right. So they may not have all the modern avionics, but they can be a bit of a handful to get used to. And I must say I'm a bit of an amateur in that department. So, all right, well, I'm afraid that brings us to the end of this week's newsletter and pretty much the end of this week's video. I had a wonderful time away in Arizona over last weekend just to recharge the batteries and get away from some of the stresses of life and work. Visiting the Grand Canyon was probably the highlight of my year, probably one of the most amazing physical features I've ever seen. The scale of the thing is absolutely hard to put together. The photographs and things just do not do it justice when you actually see it with the naked eye. And of course it is, slightly treacherous too. There are some railings and things in the major points that are of particularly touristy, and those are good vantage points, and obviously a lot of people crowd around that area. But there's other parts too that are, pretty much you can just walk off the edge of the cliff if you like. And there's one place called the Abyss, which basically is a 4,000-foot drop. And I got up in that area, and there was very few people there early on I think it was Sunday morning last week. Weather was a little chilly, but it was beautiful. Nice early morning sunshine and some nice clouds, and just kind of looked over the edge there and thought, wow, yeah, you really are just a few feet away from pretty much certain death. And I just kind of sat down, put my feet up next to the edge, and I didn't dangle them over or anything. My wife would have had a fit. She didn't see these because she forbid me to do this because so many people fall, unfortunately. And I just sort of contemplated, wow, what an amazing place. So that was cool. And then on the way out, flying out of Phoenix, I got to see some KC-135s lined up on the apron across the way at the Arizona Air National Guard, which was cool. So thanks to those people for the work that they do. And the aircraft looked beautiful sitting there. I was hoping to see them taxi. They were actually shutting them down. I was excited at one point. I thought they were starting them up because one of the strobe lights was still operating on the one of the aircraft, but then they started shutting everything down and shuttering the engines and things and getting them prepped for next time. So sadly, I didn't get to see them in action, but it was still cool to see. All right. Well, I hope you guys had a great week, and I hope you have a good weekend this weekend. Don't forget to like and subscribe, of course. It helps the channel chug along. It's a small thing. We are growing very, very slowly. Check out some of my sister channels, of course, the Air Warfare Group. We're doing a lot of work with them and having some fun time training, challenging at times. And, of course, we've got Tactical Pascal as well as part of our group there. So there's some good content creators, and check them out. Give them some support. All right, well, I think we'll leave it there. I hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next time, ladies and gentlemen. Take care out there. This is Prickly Hedgehog, and, of course, carry on flying.
Transfer complete. Disconnect.
Nice. Do you fly the Tomcat at all?